It's a series of 3 webinars that has been thought about as a precursor or a build-up towards the World Forum of Fisherpeoples General Assembly, Global General Assembly that is going to be held in Brazil from November 14th to the 21st. We are looking at 3 themes here under the broader title, which all of you know is Historic and Artisanal Coastal and Marine Rights of Traditional Fishing Communities, Conflicts and Way Forward. But within that, we are especially focusing on coastal land rights in a broad sense. But the three specific areas that we are looking at, one is looking at the whole thing from a perspective of customary governance, tenure, and traditional rights of fisher people. That is the webinar happening today. It will focus on customary governance, but as I said, coastal land rights and marine rights will be the focus in these webinars. The second is capture versus culture, and we are planning this on 27th of September, same time. Capture versus culture, the politics of industrial push impacts on fishing communities. There we are going to actually deal with the question of intensive aquaculture and what intensive aquaculture has been doing both to food sovereignty issues, the continuing livelihood of the fisher communities, and so on. And the third is reimagining rights of traditional fishers.
We have seen how these industrial agriculture has harmed peasants and other small-scale food producers, because what it does is that it displaces people from their lands. It also monopolizes resources. It degrades the environment and also threatens their livelihood.
So this tells us something about the scale of this problem of ocean grabbing that we are confronted with in this world. It would be really important, I think, to get more documentation on these numbers.
So this is the right time. That's what, since the beginning, we have been saying this. Oceans have civilizations. Every river civilizations have civilizations. There are fisher people have their own civilizations. Ocean people have their own civilizations. First of all, with the declaration, we came up with 5 R's. Recognition. Recognition means when you talk about the human rights principles, when we are recognized as indigenous people, then only we can claim the resource rights. That's what it is very clear. Still that we can't do anything. Recognition is main.
So their indigenous ways of fishing and their skills and their ways that they have in fishing is now being not accepted, in a sense that the government has now forced them to be limited to a catching basket. They are only allowed to catch specific species within a basket, within that basket.
We have to change our language, first of all. Even now, sometimes it never comes to our mouth. And when we speak, we don't say fishers. We say small-scale fisheries, large-scale fisheries, and all other terminologies which are deep-rooted in our mind and given to us by the UN bodies. But we have bought that, and we have, in our mind, it is said we have to de-learn it. But we also use that. So the usage of language is first. There it starts. Then narrations. Definitely, we have to create our own narratives, not the narratives which is said by UN bodies and not the narratives said by union governments, all the state governments, different governments of the states, and also our own dominant communities. That is the majoritarian and the corporate sector and the industrial sector.
80% of the biodiversity on this planet is where indigenous people are. Wherever the so-called development goes, wherever corporations go, they destroy the biodiversity. Factory farming of fish is destruction of biodiversity, both diversity of the land as well as the diversity of the fish. First of all, they harvest, and then they pour the pollution back and kill fish where they're breeding. They're killing the fish with their pollution, and then antibiotic resistance everywhere. There is so much literature available, but you have to generate more. The biodiversity of your cultures, the biodiversity of your ways and techniques, and the biodiversity of the ocean and the land. Let them meet. That meeting will be the biggest force of change. And just be proud of what you do, because you do the most important work. Thank you.
Many people within the FAO very quietly were pushing and encouraging me to amplify the experience of fisher peoples themselves and to push against the narrative that's coming out of blue transformation and blue economy and all of that.
At the same time, I should say that we are focusing at the General Assembly that one of the major area of our focus will be our protecting our resources, protecting our rights fighting against ocean grabbing and climate crisis, and also moving towards the food sovereignty goals.
Common, or the term that we could use, is small scale, because the purpose of small scale was our right, our human right, to be able to interact with our water body to provide food in a manner that is sustainable. And that is not overconsumption, that is not over-harvesting, that is over-regulated by outside sources, but it is our culture, it is, it is our community, it is our interaction with the resource.
We assert that we are the indigenous people and the custodians of the resources historically and traditionally. We live in harmony with the waters. We never needed no outside regulation previously. We are regulated ourselves. We had a sustainable living. We do the fishing as families, not as individuals, but as families and communities.
Today we have to be as part of one drop to get our resources back as amphibians, the rights over the land, the rights over the fisheries, and the rights over the water. Thank you for all here for listening us. Let us be together in the GA8 and bring out of the realities and put an end card for all these capitalist consumption-oriented or production-oriented terminologies. No more harvest here. We are catching fish. We are not post-harvest. We are not harvesting anything. We are pre-land. We are catching. We are landing. Pre-landing, post-landing, and we are also exporting a lot.
The fisher movement has to realize that there cannot be any compromises in this. This is the most fundamental political existential quest for the community. Without its identity itself, there is no future to fisheries, to fishery sector, or to the fishers, the fisher people, the ocean people, etc. We have to renegotiate, for which we need to have more representation in that renegotiation, both within the nation state structure, but also internationally renegotiate for our actual identities, that the community has to reawaken itself. It was in the 1990s that globally, I think a lot more interest came into the alliance building of the fishing communities, fisher peoples across the world. Inland, ocean, backwaters, all lagoons, lakes. Many of our groups started forming unions. We started mobilizing as communities. Even sometimes fighting the structures from the past, but trying to reorganize the fishing community as a political entity. I think it is time for us to reinvent and assert the political entity within our identities and bring back a militant global movement that will help us sail through these renegotiations and the fights forward.